Joining me now, Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Frances.
Well, you've said in the past that the president needs this new authority to deal with ISIS. So does this new AUMF go far enough in giving him the authority that he actually needs?
Well, first of all, I certainly appreciate the fact that President Obama has finally provided some language to Congress and that Congress is going to be involved in this thing. And we're going to take this responsibility very seriously. Let's face it, we're being asked to authorize the use of the finest among us to try and defend our freedom and protect this nation. So this is going to be something we're going to take seriously. But the authorization is really the last step in the process. You have to realize that the first thing that I want to hear from President Obama is I want to make sure he's committed to whatever he sets out as the goal. And I know he said it's degrade and ultimately defeat ISIS. I'm not sure what he means by ultimately defeat. And so I think we're going to have hearings to try and tease that out of this administration. You know, what is specifically his goal? And then what's the strategy to achieve that goal? Once we have those two things established, then we can actually start taking a look at what authorizing language he needs to implement his strategy.
Okay, speaking of that, you're saying you need clarity in the role, you need clarity in the strategy here, but then the White House is saying that the language when it comes to this is intentionally fuzzy, with a criticism that it's too ambiguous, it's too unclear. So your take, is it too fuzzy or not fuzzy enough?
Well, again, I don't really want to get into the wording of this AUMF because I'm not sure this is the one we're going to actually vote on. From my standpoint, once we establish the goal, know exactly what we're talking about, once we have the strategy, I think the authorization is going to be pretty easy. But listen, I want to have an authorization that won't hamstring either this president or future presidents. And I also want an authorization that sends a very clear signal to our enemies that we are going to defeat them. I don't want any ambiguity in there whatsoever. For example, when President Obama surged in Afghanistan and in that same message basically said, then we're going to come home in 2 years, that makes it very difficult, for example, citizens of Afghanistan to join the effort, makes it very difficult to win that battle. So I need to see a 100% commitment by this president to whatever goal he establishes.
Oh, well, you said we were really a long way from a vote on this. So let's talk about the sense of urgency, in your opinion, in passing this sooner rather than later, and how that comes into play. And essentially, you're saying we need that definition now.
Right.
Isn't that the definition we needed before? Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's face it, the president is relying currently on current authorizations for use of military force to engage in the military activity he's engaged in right now. So, you know, really he's coming here, I think, for the debate. And I think that's good, and we should be doing this. We should be discussing this. But again, discussing the language of the authorization is the absolute last step in the process. This administration has not been very forthright in defining that goal. They certainly haven't laid out a strategy. I think one of the criticisms you're hearing out of the Pentagon is they're not exactly sure what the strategy is. And once again, when President Obama initially laid out the goal, degrade and defeat ISIS, at the same time he said he took off the table the very actions that he's contemplating now that might be required to accomplish that goal. So this has been pretty ham-handed from the start. Now, so we will have to take time. Yeah. We have to get that definition. This requires a full and honest discussion debate.
Oh, especially with the clarity that no boots on the ground, and the question of how effective the airstrikes have been. So I want to ask you, change topics here, and ask you about the Keystone pipeline and the possible veto here. The State Department says the number of jobs created by its construction would be less than 0.1% of the economy. So if it's that minuscule in that sense, why has it become such a big deal?
Because it's one of the things we'll keep downward pressure on energy prices, which is a good thing for our economy. You know, the world's largest economy, that's a good thing. We also have relatively cheap energy. If you want to attract manufacturers to manufacture close to their biggest customer, low energy prices is a good thing. And by the way, the criticism that it doesn't create a lot of long-term jobs, that's actually a selling point of the pipeline. I mean, look at how efficient a pipeline is at moving millions of barrels of oil when it only takes a few employees to do that. I mean, would you rather have thousands of employees having to drive trucks in a less safe manner of transportation? So, you know, listen, it will certainly create a lot of construction jobs. That's a good thing. It'll keep downward pressure on prices of energy. That's another good thing for our economy and for middle-income Americans.
Well, we've heard the argument on both sides. Senator Ron Johnson, thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Have a good day.
Well, after the break, we will